He didn't just steal her life's work. He tried to steal her mind, slipping extra pills into her weekly dispenser, hoping she'd just fade away. It sounds like fiction, doesn't it? Like something out of a particularly nasty psychological thriller, a plot twist you wouldn't believe if you saw it on screen. But this happened, this was real life, to someone I know, someone I deeply respect, someone who carried this burden, silently at first, then shared their story with me, because they needed it heard, because silence, sometimes, feels like complicity. I'm Victoria, and on this channel, we talk about the unbelievable, the dark corners of human nature, the things people do, driven by greed, by envy, by desperation, the darkness. Yes, but also, the incredible strength it takes to fight back. The light that refuses to be extinguished. Today's story, it's heavy, be prepared for that, it cuts deep. It's about betrayal at its absolute worst, its most intimate, the kind that doesn't just wound you, it tries to obliterate you, the kind that cuts deeper than any knife, because it comes wrapped in a smile, a helping hand from family, the people who are supposed to be your safe harbor. But this story, it isn't just about the darkness. It's also about resilience, fierce, unexpected resilience, about discovering a core of steel you never knew you possessed. Finding strength when you've been pushed, right to the very edge, maybe even a little over it. My client, we'll call her Agnes. When I first met her, she seemed, well, exactly like you might picture a quintessential retired academic, quiet, intensely thoughtful, surrounded by towers of books, a comforting scent of old paper and Earl Grey tea, perhaps a little frail, physically, you might think someone easily overlooked, easily dismissed, but underestimate Agnes. Oh, that was their first mistake, their biggest mistake, their most fatal error in judgment. You need to hear how she clawed her way back from the brink, from a fog deliberately created to consume her, how she turned the tables so completely, so devastatingly, so strategically. Subscribe right now. Seriously, click that button, maybe the notification bell too, because you are not going to want to miss a single second of how this unfolds. Trust me. This is one for the books, Agnes's story. It starts gently enough, deceptively so, like so many nightmares do, creeping in on slippered feet, disguised as comfort, as care. She'd spent 40 years, maybe more, completely immersed in the past, a historian, a renowned specialist in medieval manuscripts, particularly the often overlooked domestic and monastic records. Her work, it wasn't just a job, not even just a career, it was her entire life's passion. Her purpose, her legacy, her magnum opus, a book that promised to change the field, decoding obscure monastic texts, detailing daily life, social structures, hidden economies in a way no one had ever managed before, decades of painstaking research, late nights squinting at microfilm, traveling to dusty archives across Europe, careful translation, intricate analysis, cross-referencing thousands of fragments. It was nearly finished, the culmination, the peak. Her life's crowning achievement, sitting right there on her computer's hard drive, and also, crucially, in meticulous handwritten notes, notebooks filled with insights, cross-references, ideas too fragile for the digital world, hundreds of them, stacked neatly in her study. She lived alone, widowed for 10 years. Her late husband, Arthur, also an academic, had understood her devotion. She was comfortable, financially secure from prudent investments and her pension. Fiercely independent, her mind, despite what others might assume, sharp as a tack, sharper perhaps than it had ever been. Her world was her research, her small, meticulously tended rose garden, her slightly aloof but deeply loved cat, Erasmus, named after the scholar of course, and her nephew, Leo, her late sister's boy. He'd always been, well, ambitious is the kindest word, perhaps a little too eager for shortcuts, always looking for the angle, the quick route to success that rarely materializes. He followed her into academia, history but a different field, modern European, lacking her patience, her depth, but he was family, her only close family left really. He started visiting more often, much more often, after his own academic career stalled, badly, lectureships dried up, publications rejected, funding denied, a familiar story perhaps, but Leo took it personally, grew bitter. Resentful, he brought his girlfriend, Chloe, along on these visits. Bright smile, seemed intelligent, always quick with a compliment, always helpful, too helpful, maybe. Looking back it felt, rehearsed, performative. Looking back, with the clarity of hindsight, the signs were there, scattered like breadcrumbs leading into a very dark forest. Little things, easily dismissed at the time. A comment about how valuable her research must be. An offhand question about who held her publishing contract. A casual remark about how tired she seemed lately. But Agnes trusted them. Why wouldn't she? He was her sister's son, her blood. She'd known him since he was a boy, bounced him on her knee, helped him with his university applications. She needed a little help around the house, admittedly, lifting heavy boxes of books, organizing decades of research files, navigating the increasingly complex world of online accounts and digital security. Leo offered, no, he insisted, with a warmth that felt genuine then. Chloe chimed in, always echoing him. Oh, Agnes, let us take care of you. You've worked so hard, you deserve to relax a bit. They seemed so caring, so concerned about her well-being. It felt nice, she admitted, not being quite so alone, having young energy, conversation, laughter. Filling the quiet house sometimes, she gave Leo access, foolishly, catastrophically, to her computer, her research files. Just for backup, Auntie, he'd said, smiling reassuringly. Make sure everything's safe, cloud storage, external drives, the works. She even, foolishly she knows now, agonizingly, mentioned her passwords in passing, thinking it was for emergencies, jotting one down on a notepad he'd conveniently left nearby. Chloe started helping with her medications. Agnes had mild hypertension, very well managed, nothing serious, just a couple of pills, taken daily, organized weekly in a standard plastic dispenser. Chloe took over filling it. Let me handle this, Agnes, it's fiddly, one less thing for you to worry about. She'd insisted one Sunday evening, her touch gentle on Agnes's arm, such kindness, such consideration, such poison, cloaked in concern. Now, I'm going to let Agnes tell you, in her own words, what happened next, the moment the perceived warmth turned chillingly cold, the moment she realized the smiles were masks, carefully constructed facades, hiding something truly monstrous, something unthinkable. Listen closely. This is Agnes. It began subtly, so subtly I almost dismissed it, waved it away as signs of my own agging, my own occasional forgetfulness. A file moved on my computer desktop, not where I distinctly remembered leaving it, a notebook containing vital cross-references, slightly out of place on my shelf, spine facing outwards when I always kept them inwards. Erasmus, my usually placid cat, seemed increasingly wary of Leo. He'd flatten his ears, emit a low, unhappy growl whenever Leo entered my study. Sometimes he'd just stare, unblinking, from a high shelf. Animals know, don't they? They sense dissonance, falsehood. I brushed it off, told myself I was being fanciful, projecting old age, forgetfulness, stress from finishing the book. That's what they wanted me to think. That's the narrative they were carefully constructing around me. Then, the fatigue started. Not just normal tiredness after a long day of work. This was different, a heavy, soupy, clinging fog settling over my mind, particularly potent in the mornings just when I needed my focus most. It became harder to concentrate, to follow complex arguments in my reading, to string thoughts together for my writing. My work, my beautiful, intricate work, the culmination of my life, felt distant, slippery, like trying to grasp smoke. Words wouldn't come. Connections I knew were there, remained just out of reach. Chloe would bring me tea, chamomile to soothe your nerves, fuss over me, fluffing pillows, lowering blinds. Agnes, you're pushing yourself too hard. You really need proper rest, maybe see the doctor. Her voice was filled with such apparent sympathy. Leo would nod, gravely, sympathetically. Chloe's right, Auntie, you look worn out. Maybe take a complete break from the book for a few weeks. Let your mind recover. Recover from what? I wasn't ill. Not in any conventional sense. My blood pressure readings were stable. Or was I? Could this be early onset dementia, something neurological? Doubt is a corrosive thing, insidious. It eats away at your certainty, your sense of self. They planted it carefully, nurtured it daily, watered it with their false concern, their gentle suggestions, their pitying glances. One afternoon, I was searching for a specific reference. Notes I'd taken years ago from a rare manuscript held in a small German archive. I kept these particularly sensitive notebooks locked in an old wooden chest in my study. I went to retrieve the key, the spare key, the one I kept hidden in the back of an old biscuit tin on the top shelf of the pantry, a habit from decades ago. As my fingers closed around it, something felt wrong, instantly wrong. I pulled it out, looked closer. It wasn't quite right. It looked newer, shinier. The cut seemed sharper, less worn. My key, the original, was old brass, tarnished with age, smoothed by years of handling. This one, it felt alien in my hand, wrong. A tiny alarm bell, buried deep beneath the fog, finally rang loud enough to pierce through the manufactured confusion. Why would anyone replace my hidden spare key? Unless they'd needed to use it, perhaps clumsily, and lost the original, or worse, much worse, copied it, to have unfettered access. My study, my sanctuary, the place where my thoughts took shape, suddenly felt violated, contaminated. That night. Sleep was impossible. The questions circled relentlessly. The fog felt thicker than ever. My head pulsed with a dull, persistent ache. Unlike a normal headache, I got up, padded silently downstairs, went to the kitchen. The house felt different, watchful. I looked at the pill dispenser Chloe had so diligently filled for the week, sitting there on the counter. Just 2 little pills for Friday morning, my usual dose, my usual blood pressure medication, or so I had blindly assumed for weeks, maybe months. Something, some instinct, some flicker of the analytical mind they were trying to dull, made me pick one up, carry it to the window where the moonlight streamed in. Look closer, really look. It seemed slightly different from my memory of the pills from the pharmacy bottle, the colour, perhaps a shade paler, the tiny marking. Was it identical? My hands were trembling slightly. I went to the medicine cabinet, found the original prescription bottle, thankfully not yet discarded. I shook out one of the pills from the bottle, the real pill. I placed it side by side with the one from the dispenser, under the harsh light of the kitchen lamp. They weren't the same, similar, deceptively similar, but undeniably different. The marking was subtly altered. The finish was slightly chalkier. My blood ran cold. Absolutely glacial cold, a chilling certainty that displaced the fog instantly. What was I taking? Every morning, every single morning, what had Chloe, smiling, helpful Chloe, been giving me? The helpfulness, the constant concern, the gentle nagging about rest. It wasn't kindness, it was something else, something calculating, methodical, sinister. I sat there, in the echoing silence of the dark kitchen, the wrong pill cold and heavy in my palm. The fog wasn't illness. It wasn't age, it wasn't overwork. It was induced, deliberately. They were drugging me, subtly, slowly, incrementally increasing the dose perhaps, making me confused, lethargic, suggestible, making me doubt my own mind, my own reality. Why? The question screamed in the silence. The answer hit me like a physical blow, winding me, stealing my breath, my book, my research, my 40 years of work, my legacy. Leo, the stalled academic. The bitter, resentful Nephew, masking his failures with charm. Chloe, the smiling viper, his accomplice, maybe even the architect of the finer details. They weren't just helping, they weren't just visiting out of familial duty, they were positioning themselves, insidiously, patiently, to take it, to steal my magnum opus, to pass it off as Leo's own. But how? Discredit me first, make me seem incapable, senile. The thought was so monstrous, so utterly unthinkable, a betrayal of staggering proportions. But the wrong pill, the replaced key, the invasive fatigue, the files moved, Erasmus's fear, Leo's probing questions about my progress and publishing contacts, Chloe's constant presence, it all clicked into place. A horrifying mosaic of calculated cruelty and betrayal. My own nephew, my sister's child, trying to incapacitate me, mentally, psychologically. To what end? Declare me incompetent. Gain power of attorney, gain control of my assets, my royalties, steal my life's work, lock me away somewhere. The trust I'd so freely, foolishly given them, felt like ash and bile in my mouth. The devastation was immense, a crushing weight of grief and shock. It threatened to pull me under, into the very fog they were creating. But underneath it, buried deep beneath the hurt, something else stirred, something cold, and hard, and sharp. Rage. Not hot, flailing, helpless anger. No, this was different, a deep, glacial fury, a clarity born of absolute violation. They thought I was just a frail old woman, easily confused, easily manipulated, easily erased, a relic from a bygone era. They thought they could steal my mind, dim my intellect, then plunder my legacy. Like grave robbers desecrating a tomb, they underestimated me. Profoundly, they mistook quiet scholarship, a life spent in contemplation, for weakness, for passivity. They had no idea, absolutely no idea, who they were truly dealing with. My mind, the very mind they tried to fog and disable, started working, with a speed and precision that surprised even me, analytically, precisely, strategically, like deciphering a complex medieval code, identifying patterns, anticipating the opponent's moves, formulating a counter-strategy. They wanted to play games, twisted, cruel games. Fine. Let the games begin, but I make the rules now, and my rules are unforgiving. Okay, just pausing Agnes's story for a moment. Take a breath. Can you even wrap your head around that? The depth of that betrayal, the sheer cold-blooded calculation, drugging your own aunt, someone who trusted you, loved you, welcomed you into her home, all for ambition, for greed, to steal something she poured her soul into. It makes me sick, genuinely sick to my stomach, and furious, absolutely livid. But Agnes, her reaction, that astonishing shift from devastation to cold, focused fury, that's where the story truly turns. That's the pivot point. This isn't just about victimhood. Far from it, it's about fighting back, with every ounce of intellect and strength you possess, using the very tools they sought to disable. If you're finding this compelling, if you feel that same sense of outrage, that need for justice, hit the like button. Let me know you're here, listening, sharing in this indignation. Because Agnes's strategy, it's brilliant, intricate, and yes, it's utterly ruthless, as it needed to be. Back to Agnes, picking up from that moment of chilling realization in her kitchen. The first priority was survival, physical and mental survival, and information, hard, irrefutable evidence. I couldn't let them know I knew, not by a flicker of an eyelid, not by a single sharp word, not yet. The element of surprise was my only shield. That night, standing there in the cold kitchen, I carefully flushed the wrong pills, the ones meant for Friday morning, down the toilet, watched them dissolve. Gone. The next day, Friday, I had to pretend. When Chloe arrived, smiling, asking if I'd taken my medication, I nodded vaguely, mumbling something about feeling a bit better. When she refilled the dispenser for the coming week over the weekend, bustling with false efficiency, I watched her covertly from the doorway. Later, when she and Leah were briefly occupied in the garden discussing something about needing a new lawnmower, I moved quickly. I carefully palmed the pills she had placed in each daily compartment, took them to my bathroom, hid them in an old, empty cosmetics jar at the back of a drawer. Evidence, I replaced them with tiny, low-dose aspirin tablets, the ones I occasionally took for mild arthritis. Thankfully, they were almost identical in size and color to the sedatives, a close enough match to pass casual inspection. I had to maintain the facade, continue to pretend, to still be foggy, confused, slightly detached. It was the hardest acting I've ever done in my life. Far more demanding than any academic presentation. Letting Leo help me with my computer, sitting beside him feigning mild confusion as he clicked through menus, while inwardly my stomach churned watching him covertly navigate through my research files, copying folders onto a USB drive he tried to conceal, seeing that smug little smile playing on his lips, the flicker of triumph in his eyes. He thought he was so clever, so superior, fooling the frail old dear. Chloe continued her solicitous act, amplifying it even. Feeling any better today, Agnes? You seem a little pale, maybe a nice nap. Let me make you some soup. Her voice dripped with manufactured sweetness that now sounded utterly grotesque to my ears. I'd nod vaguely, allow her to fuss, then retreat to my room, pleading tiredness, but behind my closed door, my mind was racing, calculating, planning. They wanted my research, my magnum opus. Fine. Let them take it, or rather, let them think they took the real finished version. Years ago, long before Leo's recent descent into villainy, while working on Renaissance ciphers and coded messages hidden in diplomatic letters, I became fascinated with modern encryption, steganography, the art of hiding data within other data, hiding messages in plain sight. It was just a hobby then, an intellectual exercise, a way to keep my mind sharp outside of medieval history. Playing with software, reading articles on cybersecurity forums, or so I thought. Now it felt like Providence, my magnum opus, the digital manuscript on my computer, wasn't just text files and image scans. For the past few years, as I neared completion and grew more aware of digital theft in academia, I had been embedding safeguards. Every chapter file, every scanned image caption, every footnote, contained hidden layers, things invisible to the casual user. Even a moderately tech-savvy one like Leo, invisible digital watermarks, unique identifiers generated by specialist software I'd purchased, embedded deep within the file structure, time-stamped logs of every single keystroke, every save, every revision, embedded automatically by a program running silently in the background, recording the creation process minute by minute, day by day, year by year, deep in the metadata, using a complex cipher of my own devising. Based on a medieval encryption technique, ironically enough, a digital fingerprint, unique, irrefutable, tied inextricably to my specific machine, my specific software licenses, my specific inputs, stretching back over years. Leo, with his average tech skills, focused on simply copying the visible content, wouldn't even know where to look, wouldn't suspect such layers existed. He'd copy the files, the text, the images, think he had the treasure. The complete work ready to be subtly altered and claimed as his own. But he'd also be copying the incontrovertible evidence of his own theft, time-stamped, locked away where he couldn't see it, couldn't erase it. I needed more proof, though, concrete proof of the drugging, the gaslighting, the conspiracy. The digital evidence proved the theft of the manuscript, but I needed to expose the whole monstrous plan. I went online, using a library computer miles away to be safe. Ordered tiny recording devices, state-of-the-art disguised as everyday objects, pens, USB sticks, even a small digital photo frame for the living room mantelpiece. They arrived discreetly packaged. I started leaving them active, strategically placed, in my study, the living room, the kitchen, near the phone when Leo and Chloe visited, when they thought I was napping, or confused, lost in my supposed fog. Their conversations, captured with chilling clarity, were horrifying, damning. She barely noticed I swapped the final chapter files on her backup drive yesterday. Leo bragged one afternoon, his voice low but clear, picked up by the pen lying forgotten on my desk. She just nodded when I said I was tidying up. Good, Chloe purred, her voice like velvet dipped in acid. And the extra pill seems to be working wonders. She's so much more suggestible now. Asked me 3 times this morning what day it was. She laughed. A cold, brittle sound. Perfect, just need to keep it up. Steadily, consistently lay the groundwork for significant cognitive decline. The lawyer said we need clear signs, confusion, memory loss, inability to manage her affairs, Leo continued. We need to document it carefully, then the power of attorney will be straightforward. And the book? Chloe asked. Almost ready. I've tweaked the introduction, shifted some emphasis in the conclusion, made it mine. Once she's officially deemed incapable, no one will question my inheritance of her research materials. They'll just see a devoted nephew finishing his ailing aunt's work. Hearing their voices, dripping with contempt, sheer malice, discussing my engineered decline as if planning a hostile takeover, it fueled my resolve, hardened it into something unbreakable. Every recording, meticulously saved, duplicated onto multiple hidden drives, uploaded to secure encrypted cloud storage only I could access. Using skills I never thought I'd need outside of intellectual curiosity, I needed an ally. I couldn't do this entirely alone. Someone I could trust implicitly. Absolutely. Someone with specific skills I lacked. Professor Elena Vance, Ellie, my former student, my brightest undergraduate, years ago, razor-sharp mind. Passionate about history but also fascinated by technology's role in uncovering it. Now a leading expert in digital forensics, cybersecurity, holding an endowed chair at a top university, known for her tenacity and brilliance. We'd kept in touch sporadically over the years, Christmas cards, occasional emails sharing interesting articles, a bond built on mutual respect, shared academic rigor, and a certain intellectual toughness I recognized in her even then. I contacted her, obliquely at first, using a new anonymous email account, mentioned some unusual security concerns regarding my digital research, hinted at potential intellectual property issues. Ellie, perceptive as ever, picked up on the undertones immediately. The tension beneath the formal words, she replied within an hour. "Agnes, is that really you? What's wrong? You sound strained. This isn't like you. Call me, secure line if possible." Now, hearing her voice, strong, clear, concerned, was the first moment I felt I wasn't entirely alone in this nightmare. I called her, from a burner phone I'd acquired, and I told her everything, the whole sordid, unbelievable story, the nephew, the girlfriend, the replaced key, the strange fatigue, the wrong pills, the recordings, the hidden data within my manuscript files, my fears, my fury, my burgeoning plan for retribution. There was a long silence on the line, a heavy silence. Then, "That utter, calculating bastard," Ellie breathed, her voice tight with controlled fury. "And his girlfriend. Okay, Agnes, okay, deep breath, don't you worry about a thing. We've got this. Absolutely, we've got this. Tell me exactly what you need. Consider my resources yours." Ellie became my secret weapon, my strategist, my tech wizard, my unwavering support. She guided me on how to safely handle the pills I'd saved. Get them analyzed anonymously through a trusted lab contact she had. The results confirmed it, a potent sedative, not my prescribed medication, obtained illegally, likely online from some shady overseas pharmacy, dosage consistent with inducing confusion and lethargy without immediate overdose. She remotely accessed copies of my manuscript files I'd securely uploaded, analyzed the hidden data, confirmed the invisible watermarks, the meticulous time logs, were intact. Robust, legally irrefutable proof of my authorship and the timeline of creation. She even found fragments of deleted data showing Leo's clumsy attempts to alter file properties. Idiotic. She helped me secure my home network, install better firewalls, create multiple secure backups of everything, the manuscript, the recordings, the pill analysis, backups that Ellie controlled remotely, geographically dispersed, safe, and she helped me devise, refine, perfect, the plan. The timing had to be precise, the execution flawless, maximum impact, no room for error. Leo, dear ambitious, foolish Leo, had, as we discovered through Ellie's discreet inquiries in the academic grapevine, submitted a proposal based squarely on MY research, slightly altered, dumbed down, frankly, missing the nuances only decades of immersion could provide, to a major international historical conference, the most prestigious one in our field. He was scheduled to present the Keynote address for emerging scholars in 3 months, a huge coup for him, his big break, built entirely on my stolen work, while simultaneously plotting to discredit me, perhaps even have me declared incompetent, institutionalized, silenced forever. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance, the chilling cruelty, it solidified my resolve. There could be no half measures. Ellie and I worked meticulously, like planning a complex military campaign. We gathered every scrap of evidence, the hours of recordings, the damning pill analysis report, the comprehensive digital forensic report Ellie compiled on the manuscript files, comparing Leo's plagiarized version side by side with my time-stamped originals, highlighting the theft chapter and verse, or rather, byte by byte. It was damning, utterly damning. We prepared detailed legal affidavits, sworn statements recounting the entire sequence of events. Ellie contacted a discreet, very sharp lawyer she knew, renowned for handling complex intellectual property disputes and sensitive family matters involving exploitation and abuse. He was expensive but worth every penny. He grasped the situation immediately, his professional indignation matching ours. The plan wasn't just to expose him, stop him. It was to annihilate his reputation, professionally, personally, publicly, irrevocably. At the precise moment of his supposed triumph, his coronation built on lies, he wanted my legacy, my life's work. I would ensure his legacy. The only one he'd ever have was one of shame, fraud, manipulation, and elder abuse, a cautionary tale whispered in academic circles for decades. The 3 months leading up to the conference were a blur of clandestine activity. Frantic digital exchanges with Ellie and the lawyer, careful documentation. All hidden beneath a meticulously maintained veneer of placid, slightly confused, declining old age. I played my part to perfection, leaning into their narrative just enough, asking repetitive questions, pretending to forget appointments, sighing about my fatigue. Let Leo and Chloe think their plan was working perfectly. Let them grow complacent, overconfident, arrogant. They even started, emboldened by my apparent decline, bringing documents for me to sign. During their increasingly frequent visits. Just standard things, auntie, helping manage your affairs, bank forms, permissions for online accounts, Leo would say casually, sliding papers in front of me, among them cleverly buried in innocuous-looking financial forms, powers of attorney, broad, sweeping documents giving him control. I'd feign confusion, squint at the pages, complain the print was too small, ask them to explain it again, stall. Promise to look at it later when my head was clearer. Thanks to Ellie's lawyer, who had reviewed copies I'd secretly photographed and sent him, I knew exactly what they were trying to do, the legal mechanisms they were attempting to put in place, strip me of my autonomy, my assets, my home, everything, while they built their careers, their future, on my stolen work, my stolen life. The cold fury inside me burned brighter, hotter, with each passing day. Each new calculated manipulation. Patience, Agnes, patience. Timing is everything, your moment is coming. The conference arrived, held in a grand wood-panelled hall at a prestigious old university. Hundreds of academics, historians, publishers, even some journalists covering the event, a high-profile stage. Leo was puffed up, preening like a peacock, adjusting his tie constantly, soaking it all in. Chloe clung to his arm, beaming, basking in the reflected stolen glory. Dressed expensively, he saw me sitting in the back row, unobtrusively dressed, looking perhaps a little lost. He gave me a condescending little wave, a pitying smile, probably thought I was too confused to understand the significance of the event, or perhaps too frail and proud to make a scene. How little he knew me. He didn't see Ellie, dressed smartly as a conference organizer with a borrowed badge. Slipping discreetly into the audiovisual control booth at the back, carrying a specific, unmarked USB drive, containing our meticulously prepared counter-presentation. He didn't see the lawyer, quietly taking a seat near the official conference organizers, documents ready in his briefcase. He didn't see the plainclothes police officer, alerted by the lawyer about potential ongoing criminal activity, specifically the drugging, discreetly positioned near the main exit, observing. Leo took the stage to applause, launched into his presentation, his voice confident, smooth, unlocking medieval minds, new perspectives on monastic life. My title, with 2 words changed, my research, paraphrased, simplified, occasionally fundamentally misunderstood. He lacked the depth to truly grasp it. My images, scans of manuscripts I had sourced, diagrams I had created, displayed on the giant screen behind him, credited implicitly to him. He spoke, gesturing confidently, dropping names of scholars, basking in the academic spotlight he craved. He even made a joke about the tediousness of archival work. He reached his concluding points, thanking the academy, his supposed mentors, and pointedly, my wonderfully supportive partner Chloe, without whom none of this would have been possible. She preened in the front row. He paused, smiled broadly, waiting for the inevitable applause, the validation. But instead of applause, the main screen behind him flickered, then went black for a second. Leo's final slide, his acknowledgements, vanished, replaced by something entirely different, something stark and shocking. A split screen, professionally designed by Ellie on one side, a page randomly selected from Leo's submitted manuscript for the conference proceedings. On the other side, the exact same page, from MY manuscript, dated years earlier. With the hidden digital watermark, now made visible, glowing faintly but undeniably, alongside a timestamp log, showing creation and modification dates stretching back 5 years, linked to my unique author ID. A collective gasp, an audible intake of breath, rippled through the hall, followed by confused murmurs. Leo stared, his smile frozen, then collapsing, mouth opening and closing like a fish, color draining rapidly from his face. Then, before he could react, before anyone could speak, audio began playing, crisp and clear, through the hall's powerful speaker system, crystal clear, undeniable. Leo's voice, captured by the pen recorder, bragging to Chloe. She barely noticed I swapped the final chapter files on her backup drive yesterday. Then Chloe's voice, that velvet purr turned venomous. The extra pill seems to be working wonders. She's so much more suggestible now. Significant cognitive decline. Maury text flashed on screen, synchronized with the audio, typed excerpts from their recorded conversations, detailing the plan, the deliberate drugging, the intent to declare me incompetent, discussions about accessing my finances, side-by-side comparisons of key paragraphs, Leo's work and mine, highlighting the blatant plagiarism, the clumsy attempts at paraphrasing, the summary findings of Ellie's forensic report, laid out in clear, bullet-pointed text, detailing the file manipulation, the metadata analysis, Ellie's expert testimony, condensed, authoritative, undeniable, photos of the incorrect pills next to my actual prescription medication, followed by the lab analysis report summary, confirming the presence of the illegal sedative, dosages, potential effects. It played out, methodically, relentlessly, like a prosecutor's closing argument, for 5 agonizing, excruciating minutes, incomplete, stunned. Silence from the hundreds of people in the audience. You could hear a pin drop on the thick carpet. Leo stood frozen, center stage, trapped in the spotlight, horrified, exposed, stripped bare. He looked physically smaller. Chloe, in the front row, looked like she was going to faint or vomit, her face paper-white, eyes wide with terror. When the presentation finished, the screen went black again, plunging the stage into relative darkness, leaving Leo silhouetted, utterly alone. The silence stretched, thick with shock, disbelief, and growing disgust. Then I stood up, slowly, deliberately, from my seat in the back row. Every rustle of my coat seemed amplified. All eyes, hundreds of pairs of eyes, turned towards me. A ripple of whispers went through the crowd. Who is that? I didn't need a microphone. My voice, though naturally quiet, carried with absolute clarity in the dense, shocked silence. It was the voice they had tried to stifle. The mind they had tried to fog, now utterly clear, utterly controlled. My name is Dr. Agnes Holloway, I said, my voice steady, resonant, devoid of any trace of the fog they tried so hard to impose. For 40 years I have been a scholar in this field. The research presented here today, under the name Leo Martin, is mine. I paused, letting that sink in. What you have just witnessed, through the evidence compiled by Professor Elena Vance and presented technologically, is the attempted theft of my life's work, and the attempted destruction of my life, by my nephew, Leo Martin, and his associate, Chloe Dubois. I looked directly at Leo, meeting his wide, panicked eyes across the crowded room. He was trapped, pinned by hundreds of judgmental stares. You didn't just try to steal my research, Leo. I continued, my voice dropping slightly, taking on an edge of ice. Research you fundamentally misunderstood, I might add. A few shocked laughs rippled through the audience. You tried to steal my mind, my autonomy, my future. You tried to erase me. You drugged me, systematically. For months you gaslighted me. You plotted to have me declared legally incompetent, to gain control of my assets, all while smiling to my face, pretending concern, abusing my trust, my love. You and she, I gestured towards Chloe, who flinched violently as if physically struck. Recoiling in her seat, are beneath contempt. You are a disgrace to academia and to basic human decency. The lawyer stood up then, calm, professional, approached the stage, handed a prepared file of documents to the stunned conference organizers, alerted the venue security who were already moving cautiously towards the stage. Ellie emerged calmly from the control booth, walking towards me. A grimly satisfied, protective look on her face. She stood beside me. Solidarity, people were murmuring loudly now, outraged whispers filling the hall, shock turning into audible anger. Journalists were already scribbling furiously in notebooks. Phones held high, recording the scene. They smelled a major story. Leo opened his mouth, tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. He was shaking visibly, his career, his future, imploding before his eyes. Chloe suddenly grabbed his arm, desperately trying to pull him off the stage. Away from the glare, but security was already flanking them, preventing their escape. The plainclothes officer stepped forward, calmly identified himself, spoke quietly but firmly to Leo and Chloe, advising them of their rights, mentioning potential charges. It was quiet, but the implication was deafening. Their academic careers evaporated in that single horrifying moment of public exposure. Gone, forever, their carefully constructed reputations, incinerated. Reduced to ash, their freedom, suddenly, terrifyingly, uncertain. The legal consequences were just beginning. The fallout was immediate, widespread, and brutal, just as planned. Leo was instantly suspended from his university pending a formal investigation, then summarily fired when the evidence proved overwhelming. Blacklisted, academia is a small world, gossip travels fast, and fraud of this magnitude, combined with elder abuse, is unforgivable. He became radioactive. Chloe faced similar consequences. Her own PhD program terminated, her academic aspirations obliterated, her association with Leo made her toxic. The evidence of the drugging, the meticulous recordings, the pill analysis, the affidavits, led swiftly to police charges, elder abuse, conspiracy to defraud, illegal administration of a controlled substance. The case was strong. The legal process was grinding, complex, but inevitable. Their initial smug confidence replaced by sheer abject terror. Scrambling for lawyers willing to take their tainted case, they tried to disappear, go underground, but Ellie, being Ellie, had anticipated that. Working with the lawyer, their passports were flagged, their assets frozen pending civil litigation. There was no escape, nowhere to hide from what they had done. My lawyer pursued civil action concurrently, vigorously, recovering substantial damages for the emotional distress, the attempted theft of intellectual property, the abuse of trust, the medical costs incurred. It wasn't about the money. I was financially secure. It was about the principle, about accountability, total, uncompromising, public accountability. A clear message needed to be sent. They lost everything: their careers, their reputations, their professional networks, their social standing. Their assets were tied up or liquidated to pay damages, and ultimately, their liberty. Both received prison sentences, though shorter than I'd hoped. Justice is rarely perfect, all because they underestimated a quiet old woman, surrounded by books. They saw frailty, not resilience. They thought my knowledge was confined to the dusty past, irrelevant in their modern, cynical world. They didn't realize I understood modern codes too. The intricate code of digital evidence, forensic trails, and the ancient, powerful code of righteous fury, channeled into precise, devastating action. My book, my actual magnum opus, it was published 6 months later, after some final revisions made with a clear head and renewed purpose, to critical acclaim, rave reviews in major journals, garnered prestigious awards, solidified my real legacy, the one built on decades of genuine work, not the tainted, stolen version Leo tried to peddle, but the true work. Decades in the making, recognized for its depth and originality, I included a new dedication, right at the front, to those who mistake quiet contemplation for weakness or age for obsolescence. May they learn humility, preferably the hard way. Life is quieter now, much quieter, but it's a chosen quiet, a peaceful quiet, not an imposed one laced with sedatives and deceit. Erasmus, my wise, furry sentinel, still purrs contentedly on my lap as I read in the evenings, no longer hissing at shadows or untrustworthy visitors. He seems more relaxed now too. My mind is clear, sharp, focused, entirely my own again, perhaps even sharper for the ordeal. I'm warier. Yes, naturally, the scars of such a profound betrayal. They don't vanish completely. They leave echoes, reminders. Trust is harder won now, but I am not broken. I refuse to be. I am not erased. I refuse to be silenced. I am Dr. Agnes Holloway, historian, survivor, and I fought back. With everything I had, they tried to steal my ending, rewrite my final chapter with their own greedy, cruel narrative, so I took control, and I rewrote theirs with truth, and with consequences. Wow, just wow, take a moment with that. Agnes's story, it leaves you breathless, doesn't it? Shaken, even the sheer audacity of the betrayal, the calculated intimate cruelty, drugging a family member, it's the stuff of nightmares. And then, the fierce intelligence, the cold, methodical fury of her response, turning their own assumptions against them, using her own unique skills, her deep knowledge of codes both ancient and modern. The very intellect they dismissed and tried to extinguish, to utterly dismantle them, piece by painstaking piece. It's intense, there's no other word for it. Some might say her response was harsh, perhaps even ruthless, crossing a line from justice into revenge, but was it really, or was it simply proportional? Was it justice, or was it revenge? And honestly, does it even matter, when the provocation was so extreme, so profoundly violating? When they tried to take everything, her work, her mind, her freedom, her very identity, what would you have done, in her position, faced with that level of calculated malice from people you loved and trusted? Could you have found that strength, that cold fire? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I truly want to hear what you think about this, about Agnes, about Leo and Chloe, about where justice ends and revenge begins, if there's even a clear line. It's stories like Agnes's, harrowing, yes, but ultimately stories of resilience, of fighting back against unimaginable odds, against the deepest betrayals, that remind us of the strength hidden within, often in the quietest corners, even when others try their hardest, most cruelly, to extinguish it. That spark can ignite into a wildfire. Thank you for listening, for being part of this difficult but important conversation. If this story resonated with you, if you feel compelled to hear more stories of survival, resilience, and justice, however complex that justice might be, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. We have more stories waiting to be told. Share this story if you feel it needs to be heard. Perhaps someone out there needs to hear that fighting back is possible, that being underestimated can be a superpower. Sometimes, the quietest voices, the ones society often overlooks, have the most powerful tales to tell, and the most effective ways of ensuring they are finally heard. I'm Victoria. Thank you for being here, for your time and attention. Until next time, stay strong, stay aware, look out for each other, and never, ever, let anyone underestimate you, or mistake your quietness for weakness.